Hello, this is Jadon Sancho. You're listening to Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 308 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Dortmund advancing to the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League, and we will preview the Bundesliga doubleheader with the away match against Mainz and then the Tuesday night game at home to RB Leipzig. And for all that and more, join me once again, Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, I am doing well. The sun is shining in Colorado. How are you doing today?
I am doing well myself. The sun is also shining in Philadelphia. How's the sun doing in Bonn, Mr. Lars Pollmann? Hello.
I'll tell you in 10 hours. No, 12. It's a full moon
it's
this
already
night,
down.
So it's still pretty bright out, but it's the moon and not the sun.
So it's the sunlight is being reflected nicely toward Earth in Germany. That's nice. Also here, Konstantin Eckner. Hello, Konstantin. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Hi, Stefan.
Hi. So before we continue, I have a quick announcement, and that is this episode is sponsored by the BVB 09 Canadians, the only BVB fan club in Canada, according to Dan Ackland, who put up the $10 for the shout out. And if you also want to be the sponsor of an episode like Dan, please go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for more information. And that should be all with housekeeping, because we have lots of things to talk to. First, I think it was one of the most exhilarating afternoons I had. Certainly, Dortmund beating Slavia Prague. Meanwhile, Barcelona's B team somehow getting away with a 2-1 win against Inter. Last, we had a very interesting matchup against Slavia, with a lot of chances on both ends. Do you think this was the sort of game everyone could expect, considering how strong Slavia Prague are? And how would you rate Dortmund's performance overall against what I personally think was a very strong opponent?
Well, they showed to be pretty strong over the course of the group stage, but going by the first matchup in Prague, I don't think I necessarily expected like this kind of open game. Obviously they are pretty much guaranteed to once again win the Czech League this season. They are already out of the cup, if the German commentator was not mistaken. So they basically have nothing left to play for in the middle of December. So I'm not necessarily surprised that they went all out and just wanted to have some fun in perhaps the biggest stadium they are going to play in for a while. Also, the head coach seems to be some sort of Dortmund fan or Jürgen Klopp fan, with his association to Dortmund being, a factor for Tripikowski is his name or something like that. So I'm not necessarily surprised that Prague kind of went all out and played their best team and whatnot, but I am a little surprised that they had so many chances, given that Dortmund knew going into the game that presumably at least they would have to win the game. Obviously at the end of the day, Barca got the job done to the degree that a 2-2 draw in Dortmund would have sufficed, which would arguably, or not arguably, which would definitely have been the more fair result for both teams. So as for the Dortmund performance, I'm not hugely impressed by the amount of chances. Obviously, when Roman Bürki in a home Champions League gotta have it match is the hero with 7-8 good saves,
saves,
or strong saves or whatever. That doesn't reflect too well on the overall performance of the team. But then again, I think we at least saw again the benefits of the system change Lucien Favre has now committed to. I think I mean, he could have easily switched things around without Axel Witsel, not necessarily trusted Julian Weigl to be that single pivot, if you want to call it that. But he did, so I think that he's, I think he's kind of realized that this formation brings out the best in his attacking players, and seeing as Dortmund aren't stable defensively in any kind of shape, it makes sense to just focus on on the front four or front six, if you like, if you want to include the wing backs. So it was once again a very strong performance of Julian Brandt, and at least a free-flowing performance from Azar, Reus, Sancho, even though not all of them necessarily had great games individually.
Yeah, I think I'm not stepping on anyone's toes here when I say that we're basically the Julian Brandt Hive on this podcast. I know you, Konstantin, were also very enthusiastic about his addition. Now he's playing at the number 8 position, which I, my only criticism is why not sooner? But I think this is the first time you are on here since Favre has committed to the 3-4 Favre system. So please expand your own opinion on that, and how did you like this system with a Hummels back in the back three and Julian Weigl next to Brandt?
So starting at the back, I don't think Hummels is made for back three. I mean, he doesn't really fit the back three. Why not? Because he's a center back, full back forward, can advance through the half space if he's playing in the middle, and he advances either defensively or offensively. He's just dangerous to his own team most of the time. His style of defending is just not suitable to back three, especially when he's in the middle, and he has to play in the middle usually because he's not quick enough for an outside position, and also because Zagadou is left-footed, he has to play on the left side basically. So yeah, Hummel is not really suitable to a back three. They do the best of it, I guess. I mean, but still, I mean, the goal Slavia scored second time within a time span of a few matches where Hummels committed a crucial mistake by just leaving the back line and doing something because he has to be proactive. Yeah, I mean, that's still, I mean, if you're moving forward and you're slipped, there's more of a possibility to slip. And then it becomes really dangerous. I mean, against Hertha, he committed he got the first booking because he did something not similarly, but he also advanced and just got outmaneuvered. And then got the second yellow and was off the pitch after, what was it? 45 minutes, something like that. There's that. Also, I mean, what Dortmund right now plays under Favre, the current system reminds a little bit of what Leverkusen did last season. Under Peter Bosch, also involved when also Julian Brandt was involved as a number 8. Although I have to say that because the back three is as it is right now at Dortmund, they don't play as wide as Leverkusen did, which was a big strength for Leverkusen. So there's something to also improve in terms of how they play down the wing. Dortmund is. And also, in terms of, playing Julian Weigl alongside Brandt, I think, it's like the natural fit if you look at the squad. Delaney out, Witsel injured. So, there's only Julian Weigl left to fit into this a little bit more defensive-minded center midfielder role. So I wasn't really surprised, just what was expected, I guess. Of course, the pairing of Witsel and Brandt in the middle works a little bit better because I think Witsel is more of a center midfielder who can disrupt opposing plays far better than Weigl, who tried that to some extent, who was really active in terms of going into one-on-one situations, but often enough not really in the position to really make something happen in these one-on-one situations because he was just going against the back of an opponent and then being out of position when the layoff pass happens. So, he's not the smartest player in one-on-ones, not as tight in these defensive situations as Witsel is. And after all, he got sent off.
Yeah, I guess there's not really much of an argument there. Matthias, I would agree with the assessment that Mats Hummels isn't necessarily too suited for a back three. We had a little conversation after the game on WhatsApp whether it would be smarter to have Zagadou, Akanji, and Piszczek back there, and you said Balerdi. But is this still your opinion that maybe the ideal formation if Dortmund play with the back three is without Hummels?
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue against that, but it's not going to happen. He's going to play. It's Mats Hummels. They paid too much money. He makes too much money, so he's going to play. So that's already, to me, a given fact. But taking that out of the equation, if we look at it, the one thing that, and I think I made this comment to you, was he looks lost. He doesn't know what to do, where to be. There were a couple of situations where he got in the way of either Zagadou or Akanji when they were trying to clear the ball or play the ball out of the back. I can remember one instance, I don't know the minute or everything, but him and Akanji just basically got on top of each other because Hummels moved into the space where Akanji is and moved into to play a pass, and it kind of, the ball kind of squirted out to Hakimi and it worked out. And it's because what was already said is he is more comfortable in a back four. That's where he's always played. And as such, he doesn't quite know where to fit and where to position himself. When we look at the previous match against Düsseldorf, when you had Piszczek on the right, Piszczek is more natural to be on the right because he's also a right back. Having Akanji be in the center, that's really not much of an issue for him. And obviously Zagadou is comfortable on the left. Hummels, it seemed to me he didn't know what to do or where to be, because it's unnatural for him to play in that formation. Also because of his age, he's been conditioned to play in a back four. Younger players are more likely to adapt to a different formation at a quicker pace. And I do stand that when Balerdi is ready, and Favre was asked about Balerdi in his pre-Mainz press conference and kind of talked about it a little bit. But when Balerdi is ready, then I think he would be the one on the right instead of Piszczek for a variety of reasons. Obviously, one is a true center back, one is a right back. So hopefully once Balerdi gets used to the pace of the Bundesliga, and the other thing that was mentioned, the distance between the lines and the spacing between the defenders, then I expect, if a back three persists, to see a lot more of Balerdi, which I presume will make a lot of the people here on the podcast happy, including myself.
Yeah, that's true. Lars, you watched this game live, right? But I personally must say, to me, the last 50 minutes or so were pretty much a blur because I was just glued to both screens at once and didn't really pay too close attention to tactical things anymore. So after Weigl got sent off in the 77th minute, can you fill me and maybe all other listeners who had the similar experience as me in what Favre actually changed once Dortmund were decimated and down to 10?
Sadly, I cannot.
Konstantin?
What he did, they just, what was it? They just played, what was it actually? Yeah, that's actually a good question. It
was a double pivot of Hazard next to Brandt. That's predominantly.
Yeah, I think, yeah, right. That was Hazard because I was
Matthias saving all our asses here right now.
Yeah. It's interesting actually because I don't know. I mean, before Weigl got sent off, it was pretty structured, but after that, not so much. And then he was, then Hazard, and then, yeah, that's right. Balerdi played in center midfield. Because Balerdi came, that's what I thought about. Balerdi played in center mid, or as a holding midfielder, when he came on for Hazard, and Piszczek replaced Hakimi just to have some fresh legs on the right side and a little bit more of a defensively capable player. I mean, let's be honest, Piszczek is a little bit of a better defender than Hakimi. But yeah, Balerdi played as a holding midfielder. And then also Dahoud came on for Sancho. Basically they had three midfielders then. Balerdi as a holding midfielder, and Brandt and Dahoud like in the 4-3-3 situation, but so basically they a little bit ahead of him in the number 8 or in 2 number 8 spots. Yeah, that was it. Balerdi,
it was pretty mayhem, to be honest. And
yeah, but still, it's interesting who he choose to play as a holding midfielder. That it was Balerdi.
Yeah,
because I mean, of course, in such situation, it's basically if you are a holding midfielder, just defending a lead against Slavia Prague for 50 minutes, for 10 minutes or so. Of course, there's not much like complex tasks to fulfill. Still, I mean, he trusted him to play in a holding midfielder position to protect the back line to some extent. And he didn't switch it to, I don't know, Akanji playing as a holding midfielder or Mats Hummels playing as a holding midfielder. So it's interesting to see what he did. Or actually, I mean, I expected him, quite frankly, to have Guerrero move into the center midfielder position and playing Piszczek and Hakimi as the 2 wing backs. But he didn't.
Well, either way, it was pretty chaotic. And I think the man of the match in my book was definitely Roman Bürki, and Roman Bürki said after the game about the chants, the yellow wall chanting his name, as he said, I had to keep it together so I wouldn't cry tears of joy, but to keep focused on the game. It's an incredible feeling, and I think today we read a couple of headlines that Zorc is maybe contemplating extending his contract, which runs out in 2021. Lars, do you think this would be a good time for Roman Bürki to extend his contract? Do you think he should continue to be Dortmund's number 1 for the foreseeable future, or do you think Dortmund should look out elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure they are in the Alexander Nübel sweepstakes. Schalke captain.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Who's out of contract in the summer, who presumably is not going to Bayern just because they are about to extend Manuel Neuer's contract until 23, I think. They still have Sven Ulreich. They already extended the contract, or are about to extend the contract of Christian Früchtl, who's considered next to Luca Unbauen to perhaps be one of the best goalkeeping talents in Germany overall. So there doesn't seem to be an opening for Nübel at Bayern. So he would either stay at Schalke or move elsewhere. And Dortmund are certainly, especially since Matthias Sammer came back and there was kind of a shift in philosophy, they certainly will think long and hard about adding a potential German international in that position for free. Also hurting Schalke wouldn't hurt them, I guess. So I would keep that in mind. But as for Roman Bürki, I think he's still fairly securely entrenched as Dortmund's number 1 goalkeeper for the foreseeable future, unless they get Nübel. So I wouldn't be in opposition to a contract extension, but it's also not like I think there would be, many clubs lining up to snatch Roman Bürki out of Dortmund's hands if the contract wasn't extended soon. So, I mean, they already did the anti-cyclical contract extension when Bürki was down on his luck for a few months, trying to get him back into form or good shape or whatever. And that kind of worked. So, I mean, he seems to be the kind of guy that resonates, that responds to, that kind of incentive off the pitch. But right now, I don't necessarily know if he needs it. And as I said, he's not going to go anywhere without a contract extension anytime soon. So, I mean, it wouldn't be necessarily on my front burner in terms of kind of deals that we have to make as a club.
That is true. I think there are a couple other deals we shall discuss later down the road. In the meantime, I watched...
Just one thing. Remember when everyone was, on the Timo Horn train 1.5 years ago? Everyone wanted Timo Horn to replace Roman Bürki, or remember when a few weeks, or I don't know, 2 months ago or so, when Marvin Hitz replaced Bürki for some time, and everyone was fine. Yeah, maybe Hitz should get the number 1 spot right now. Times change very quickly.
Oh, I agree. And the hits thing, I've even seen that on Twitter. They're like, well, look at the statistics for Dortmund when Hits plays versus when Bürki plays. I'm sorry. Please don't tweet that stuff because it makes you look like an idiot because you're obviously not taking everything into account as far as opposition goals scored. Roman Bürki, I can't think of too many times this season where it's been his fault that Dortmund have dropped points or lost points at the end of the day. It's again another performance where he got Dortmund the points. So, I agree with Konstantin. Timo Horn, I don't think anybody wants him right now, in that regard. So, I agree also with Lars. There's no reason to extend his contract at this time. Plus the quote, the question that Zorc was asked in the press conference was, are you thinking about extending his contract? And he said, I always think about all of my players' contracts. That's literally what he said. So it was kind of an answer, non-answer. It kind of got spun into something a little weird on Kika and stuff like that today. But that's actually what he said in terms of, I always think about everybody's contract. So leave me the hell alone.
A non-answer in a Dortmund press conference? Color me shocked.
Ridiculous, right? That happens never. No, but the point I was actually also making, besides the Roman Bürki thing, is just sometimes I just remember all the names, all the flavors of the season that have been around. Like, I mean, there have been, 20 to 50 center forwards and attacking midfielders who were the hottest shit for some time, and Dortmund had to sign them because otherwise they, the Sivkovics and Mitrovic and whatever, and some of them I don't know where they have ended up. In Southeast Asia or somewhere.
Don't forget my man Fedor Smolov.
Fedor Smolov, yeah, but the hype surrounding him wasn't as, but yeah, I mean, still, yeah, you're right, actually. I mean, there were so many, like Oliver Torres also, I mean, I liked him, but you should have 25 capable players and that's it. And sometimes Dortmund fans have the tendency to, they want to sign anyone that's out there and just available and has, had some decent matches and looks like a star or maybe has name value because he played for, Benfica or whatever. So yeah, just put on a break sometimes, with all these, demands on who the club should sign, because sometimes often enough times change very quickly, and we will never talk about some of these names ever again because they are, far away from Dortmund quality.
Like this Yarmolenko guy.
Who?
Yarmolenko.
Who?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we can move on
Maxi
now.
Philipp.
Yes. Please, can we move on now? So I watched Twitter being very joyful that Dortmund proceeded to the round of 16, only for everyone then to fall into despair 2 seconds later because they saw the possible opponents, which are PSG, Man City, Juventus, Liverpool, and Valencia. I guess the obvious candidate that everyone would like to play against would be Valencia. That being said, who would you, at all possibilities, avoid, Lars?
Avoid?
Yes.
I guess PSG, just because of the attacking talent in that team, and they seem to be the most able, at least in the Champions League season this year, to actually follow up on all that talent. But to be honest, I think the names are bigger than the quality is this season, especially for Man City and Juventus. Juventus only lost one league game this season, now against Lazio last weekend, but their performances have been quite lackluster under Maurizio Sarri. I mean, they are in the Ronaldo trap of having to play him often, but he's just not very good anymore. I mean, obviously he still scores a number of goals, but he's definitely not among the 5 or 6 best attacking players in the Serie A anymore. So I think Juventus are more beatable this season than they have been in the past. Obviously they are a better outfit than Dortmund, but over 2 games, a lot of things can happen. Man City, I mean, they're not even second in the Premier League. They've lost to Dortmund B in Norwich City this season. I don't think they are necessarily this unbeatable team. Obviously, they might focus on the Champions League more, and who knows what happens in the January transfer window. But as of right now, they have like one center half, and I don't know if Laporte and others will be back in February or early March. So Man City doesn't look unbeatable to me, and I think most people will point to Valencia as the least recognized big team, but typically I would say that Dortmund would struggle more against a side like that than, say, Man City, going by what I've seen of those teams this season. So I'm not necessarily hot on PSG, but other than that, I wouldn't say Dortmund are without chance against anyone. And not even, I mean, they aren't without chance against PSG because, Paris have quite the issue with actually coming through in the Champions League. So, I mean, they dropped out against Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United last season. So anything's possible.
Any other comments, or should we just move on to the Bundesliga?
I mean, if you look at teams Dortmund could face, I think you should wish for a team that's not that strong defensively, because it's not like Dortmund will keep one of these top tier teams, and they are all top tier teams, at bay for 180 minutes. I mean, that's just not possible. So whether to play the 0-0 game, it's more like maybe we can have a shootout and we beat them. And that's why I also agree that like Manchester City, for instance, with a pretty bad backline, they are beatable. Same for Juventus with I don't know what they are doing in terms of in their defense, but it's all right for the Serie A sometimes, but it's not really that I mean, if you really go into these kind of matches, I think Juventus is beatable. On the other side, PSG, for instance, have been pretty strong as of late. They keep a clean sheet more often than not. So I think Tuchel has fixed a lot of or plenty of issues they had, so I don't really want to, and also, I don't know, these side stories with Tuchel and whatever, it's like getting on your nerves a little bit. And Valencia.
Same with Klopp.
Yeah, same with Klopp, like Liverpool and PSG, like we got all these side stories, and like Tuchel and the story of the Champions League run with, and then the bombing prior to the Monaco match and blah blah blah. So yes, I guess Manchester City would be actually a great matchup because they are beatable. It would be a great win for Dortmund if they beat Manchester City. Pep Guardiola pulls his hair, pulls not his skin. I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean. So you get it. I mean, I think Manchester City would actually be pretty great as an opponent. It sucks a little bit that they are, that they can't go up against like RB Leipzig and Bayern Munich, of course, because of the national rule.
Yeah, sucks. All right.
Because they are beatable.
Yeah, let's move on to Mainz before we talk about Leipzig. Mainz right now are in 13th place. They have 5 wins and 9 losses to their name. And Dortmund will play against Achim Bayerlorzer again, who is now the new head coach of Mainz after being already the head coach of Cologne. When Dortmund beat them earlier, Mainz, I think, fired Sandro Schwarz a couple games ago, like 3 games ago, and now they've beaten Hoffenheim 5-1, beaten Frankfurt 2-1, and then lost to Augsburg in the last 3 games. And their injuries are Dani Lazar, Stefan Bell, Jean-Philippe Mateta, and Dongwon Ji. Karim Onisivo is also doubtful, so they have a couple of injury woes. Especially, it's good for Dortmund that Dongwon Ji is injured because he likes to score somehow against them. It's certainly not going to be a very easy game. Matthias, do you think Favre will stay true to his 3-4-3 system again, or do you think he will switch things up without Witzel and Delaney and Schmelzer? Or do you think he will do just the same and hope that Mainz can't handle it?
I don't expect him to change. Why? You've got momentum. You have the team believing in it. They're understanding their movements and how to play. You got a little bit defensively to sort out, but I think Slavia Prague are significantly better than Mainz. But there are certain similarities. Obviously, Achim Bayerlotzer likes a good press and to be aggressive and physical and Männerfußball and all that stuff. And so it's going to be very uncomfortable. They're going to stand on Dortmund's toes. I don't expect them to pack the box and low block. doesn't tend to be how Achim Bayerlotzer likes to play. But who knows? But I just don't expect that to happen because he will have seen Düsseldorf try to low block and all that kind of stuff against Dortmund. They got pulled apart, even though Mainz are better. But they're still, kind of figuring out Bayerlotzer and his football. I know the Mainz supporters are still unsure about Bayerlotzer, is what I'm hearing. And so it's going to be uncomfortable, but I do expect Favre to play the same formation. Obviously, you got to play, I expect Weigl again next to Brandt, because I don't really know who to put there. I mean, I doubt he'd put Balerdi in that position at this point. So, I expect much of the same as we saw against Slavia Prague. Maybe some rotation at the wingback position. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Piszczek on the right and Schulz on the left. But other than that, I don't expect a huge change.
Yeah, Konstantin, I think you remember Bayerlotzer's game plan that he had with Cologne against Dortmund, where he basically stretched Dortmund out across the field and pressed the center backs very high and put the central midfielders into the cover shadows and then basically forced turnovers on the fullback positions. Do you think this plan would work as well right now as Dortmund line up?
No, not really. Because you have these natural, you have these situations, for Dortmund where they can basically outnumber, the type of press Cologne applied, under, Bayerlotzer, but also, has been said, or has been said that, Mainz plays a little bit differently than, Cologne. Like,
Obviously.
It's the same coach, but it's the same coach, but he switched things up a little bit. He's even more risk-taking right now, because I think just because he sees like that's his last opportunity to establish himself as a Bundesliga coach, or as he's like a failure, because he didn't have a great resume to begin with when he came to Cologne, so it's really his last chance. So I mean, it's interesting to see the difference of Mainz under Schwarz and now under Bayerlotzer. Like it's pretty interesting to see, because like their press is more compact, more tight, far higher up the pitch. They generate far more high press shots from these situations. Actually, a lot of turnovers in the opposing half in these like 3 matches under Bayerlotzer. So I guess he could try that again. Because why not? What could happen? I mean, they get outplayed by Dortmund, no big deal actually. So I guess they try that. Dortmund's build up in general, in this new system hasn't been tested that much. A little bit against Hertha BSC, but also there was a situation with red card. So why not? I guess he will try that to just press as high as possible. Probably man marking, some maybe Akanji and Hummels man mark system against them, and then get a little bit of the ball to Zagadou, and then be surprised that Zagadou can actually play a pretty good vertical pass. So as Slavia Prague, by the way,
I wouldn't keep Zagadou open if it were me, to be honest. That's
still, I mean, asked some Slavia Prague coach who also tried that. I was probably also surprised that the big fella from France can play, or is actually pretty capable, pretty competent when it comes to build up plays and these passes and playing into the midfield. So I mean, they can try it again, or maybe they watch the footage. They, meaning Mainz, watch the footage from the Park game and decided, alright. Still, especially because Zagadou is on the left side. And Brandt is on the left, or basically left side is center midfielder for most of the time, because he's also left-footed. They can, he has someone to play with, he meaning Zagadou. And that also helps him, that really it's helpful to someone like him, to have the one playmaker, right in front of him, basically. So why not? But I think Mainz will go all out, guns blazing, as they try to do right now. And still I see Dortmund having much more confidence in their system, because of recent matches and because of passing play although not as dominant as it should be, but looked much more fluid compared to matches prior to the system change.
Yes, I think we have underappreciated Lucien Favre too,
Sure.
maybe, but Julian Brandt so far in this episode. And Lars, do you think the Julian Brandt honeymoon will be over soon because he will receive more attention and opponents figuring out how to play against him better? Or do you think what he's doing right now is something that we can get used to regardless of what opponents do and think about?
I mean, I don't know what opponents could do to completely take him out of the game. I mean, he's too intelligent for that. He has too much spatial awareness to position himself. He has a relatively free role with a, more natural holding midfielder next to him, be that Weigl or Witzel before him. I really don't see how you contain Brandt that much without sacrificing your coverage in other positions. So, I mean, if Brandt's impact were to be that they, meaning the opponent, have fewer bodies for Reus, Hazard, and Sancho, and maybe Paco at some stage again, or Guerrero on the left, Hakimi on the right, I mean, that would still be highly valuable to Dortmund's progressing of the ball. So, but I just don't see how. I mean, in this kind of form with this position and space that Brandt has, I think he's basically unplayable, at least against, let's say 14, 15 Bundesliga teams and many teams also in Europe.
Yeah, Matthias, when we look at the 1-0 that Dortmund scored against Slavia Prague, where Julian Brandt had this one peripheral look and then passed it toward Reus, do you think that in this formation, Brandt really complements Marco Reus? And do you think, I haven't looked it up, but I think traditionally Marco Reus likes to score against Mainz as it is. Do you think in this sort of role and this sort of dynamic where Reus gets to lead the line and run into space of quick passes, do you think this is going to be a weapon now that we see more often? Konstantin already said it all looks a bit more fluid, but I actually think that the vertical balls by Brandt into the path of Reus or the 1-2 combinations with Sancho, do you think that can really make the difference also in individual form, which we have seen quite dropping in both terms of Sancho and Reus?
Well, obviously, I mean, if we look at against Düsseldorf, first goal or a few of the goals, also against Slavia Prague, it was just the fluidity of movement and the pace behind it. And it complements Marco Reus because it plays completely into his strengths. Because his best seasons were when he came in from the left wing, not when he was central in a number 10 or as a striker. So when he came in on the wing and he could run direct either into space or at the opponent. And that is, in the last few matches, watching it, seems to be the direction that they're going with him in the lineup. Because, as Lars said, if you try to mark out Julian Brandt, then you've got Hazard, who's also a very natural type playmaker, much more so than Sancho or Reus, which then complements them and allows them to play into their strengths, which is obviously dribbling, pace, and explosiveness, finishing, all that kind of stuff. And it moves the attacking, playmaking duties onto players that are more capable of doing that, be it an Hazard, be that a Brandt, or even if Götze would come in, I think that's kind of his strong suit. So yeah, it absolutely complements his strengths, and it helps against opponents that are compact and strong and also physically strong, just because they're not as good quality-wise. So naturally, things will open up as you have more fluid motion and quicker passing interchanges, as we've seen the last few matches.
Konstantin, considering Dortmund play on Tuesday against Leipzig, if you were to rotate any players, who'd you pick and who'd you replace them with?
There's not much. I mean, I
maybe
I could
Schultz
see
for Guerrero also.
Yeah, maybe Schultz for Guerrero. I could see maybe Reus getting a rest. Although I don't know if that's against the rules at Dortmund. I'm not sure. I haven't read the rule book as of late. But yeah, maybe getting Paco Alcázar a little bit more of a playing time there. Because he got lost a little bit there. That's one option, I think. But there's not much else. I mean, it's like right now, because of the Witzel and Delaney injuries, and because of, Jakob Brun Larsen doesn't play a role anymore, and gets the situation, it is what it is. There aren't as many options, in terms of, especially in the attacking department, for changes. It's only thing I could see is that maybe Paco comes in and, I don't know, Ivar Royce moves to the left side, for instance, and either Sancho or Hazard, one gets resting time, something like that. Or maybe even Royce gets some rest and comes in after 60 minutes or so. I could see something like that. There's not much more, right? I mean, I don't see Dahoud starting, especially not next to Brandt. And I don't see Brandt being as hot as he is right now, sitting on the bench.
Lars, do you have any shots?
I wouldn't be surprised if Paco got a start, because I tend to think that Favre is going to revert his system back for the Leipzig game. And there he will need, more of a striker in Alcázar. So wouldn't surprise me if he got at least like 30, 35 minutes against Mainz as well. But there's also something to be said for only 3 games being left and the current formation working so well that, maybe they want to save that momentum until the winter break.
Yeah, fair enough. The top scorers of Mainz are Quaison with 4 goals, Boetius with 3, and Öztunali with 3. I would say that Quaison and Boetius both have good pace, I guess. Is this going to be a problem for Dortmund's backline, Matthias? Do you think there could be a similar trap as we've seen with Paderborn?
Well, as long as you have Zagadou, if you're playing a 3-4-3, I'm not too worried about a Paderborn type scenario. I'm a little bit more worried about a Slavia Prague type scenario. I don't necessarily, if you have Zagadou and Akanji, even with Hummels centrally, and then you've got pacier wing backs, I'm not really worried about that, to be honest. I'm more worried about the high press forcing bad decisions turning into goal-scoring opportunities than getting behind Dortmund's backline at pace right now in this formation.
Yeah, so my personal hope in this game is really that Dortmund shake a bit of their, what sometimes is a very poor away performance where they just don't, play at their full potential right from the start. They started very brightly, I would say, against Hertha Berlin, but then sort of collapsed. And I really hope that this Mainz game won't be another nervy affair. But you, of course, never know, because Mainz are quite capable of making things tough. And they're the typical never say die team right now. And at least that's the impression I had watching them beat Frankfurt. That wasn't a pretty game at all, but somehow they persevered. So that's my big fear. I made a huge prediction ahead of the Düsseldorf game, which was that Dortmund would absolutely definitely score a set-piece goal, which they then of course did not. But since Mainz together with Werder Bremen have conceded the most set-piece goals, 9 in total, I will make the same prediction again, and I think it's time for Mats Hummels to be on a score sheet again. So there's that. Konstantin, I think we can move over to predictions unless you have anything more to say, because we still have to cover that Leipzig game and then maybe...
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I think a smooth 3-1.
Lars?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's of course.
Matthias?
I think clean sheet time. Why not? 2-0.
All right, I'm actually gonna say 3-0 because why not? I have another question though, and that's basically moves straight into the next game, Lars, and it might be a bit frivolous. However, Mats Hummels is on that fourth yellow, and I don't want him to see defending against Timo Werner for obvious reasons. So would it be a bad thing as a Dortmund fan to hope for Hummels to get his fifth card and be suspended against Leipzig, so Favre won't even think about him playing against Leipzig? Or is that something stupid that I just said?
I mean, it's pretty stupid, but I mean, I would, as I said, assume that Favre is going to revert to a back four against Leipzig, and in a back four, you would definitely want Hummels to play, even if it's against Timo Werner. So
that is true.
I mean, at least
maybe
if Favre doesn't want to play Hummels, he doesn't need the excuse of a fifth booking. I mean, he's a grown man, and he can tell Hummels to sit on the bench for 90 minutes. That wouldn't be, the end of the world, even though it would be a feast for the media. But I mean, I don't expect Hummels to sit on the bench either way, even if they were not to revert. So I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up a booking, just because this season seems to be for the first time that lacking pace kind of catches up to Hummels a little bit. I mean, he never got so many bookings in like half a season in his previous Dortmund years. And I would safely assume, I guess, that at Bayern he didn't get many bookings either. So it seems like, as I said, pace or lack of pace might be catching up to him a bit more this season. So a fifth booking in, I guess, something like 13 or 14 Bundesliga matches wouldn't be too surprising. But I mean, I would never hope for a player to be unavailable, because what if Hummels picks up a fifth booking and then Zagadou crashes down the stairs like Axel Witsel, then you are left with Weigl Akanji or Akanji Balerdi. So that's not great either.
Yeah, that is correct. So let's look a little bit at Leipzig. They're in second place right now. They are 4 points ahead of Dortmund, and they have won their last 4 league games and play this weekend away to Fortuna Düsseldorf. They have the best attack in the Bundesliga with, I think, 39 goals, and they have also stat that I found interesting. Are tackling the most, have 19.5 tackles, opposed to Dortmund's 16.2. I think Dortmund are like ranked 14th in that category, and Leipzig have the 4th most possession, averaging 52%. Obviously, Bayern, Dortmund, and Leverkusen are ahead of them in that category, and Leipzig also have scored the most penalties with 4 and have scored the most goals on the counter with 5 goals, according to Who Scored. So that all being said, since we have our own somewhat RB Leipzig insider here, Konstantin, maybe beyond the stats, explain to us how Julian Nagelsmann has transformed, if at all, this team, and how he has gotten out of this little dip that Leipzig had in form, where they crashed down the table for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, to not get too much or too far of the Leipzig analysis or too much into the history of this season, it was just Julian Weigl came in with the idea to, I mean, that's like, he doesn't really write out, said it to me, but still, I mean,
Julian Weigl?
Julian Nagelsmann. Weigl not so much. I know he's not so talkative. But Nagelsmann, he came in, and he wanted to basically reproduce his Hoffenheim system, going a little bit away from the 4-2-2-2, which was previously used under Hasenhüttl and Rangnick, because he saw much more of an advantage in the back three, especially using someone like Mukile or even Klostermann in a half-space defending position. These advancing movements can pretty much be key. I mean, he fought, so different, like something different from Hoffenheim, because that's what more of a static back three, but still, like in terms of formation, something that he already used at Hoffenheim. However, that didn't really work out in a couple of matches. I think he was too reactive in his approach, especially against top tier teams like Bayern, and in the Champions League as well, against Olympique Lyonnais, for instance. So what he did was he went back to a more of a customary 4-4-2 system. So the change was basically compared to last season that now, let's say Forsberg and Sabitzer, two of the attacking midfielders, are playing in a more of a wide role, not so much inverted, much more down the ring, and feed the center forwards much more conventionally. So what is interesting to see is the development of Timo Werner, not so much the goal scoring. I mean, that was already there and it hasn't really changed. What Nagelsmann wants Werner to do, and I have that confirmed, is that really he wants to be the playmaking center forward, which is interesting because he was often so limited in his movement and his tactical understanding. But now Werner is the go-to guy because he drops back, as opposed to previously where Pausen was the guy who dropped back because he had the body to shield the ball, to receive these high balls from the back line and then, play layoffs. Now it's Werner because it's more of a grounded passing-based style. And Werner drops back, especially through the left half space because it's like his preferred half space, or his preferred side. He drops back and it gets fed a lot of balls there, and receives them and can turn around and be pretty explosive in the first moment after reception. So the key is really what Timo Werner does and how his surroundings, his environment, acts and his environment supports him. And I think in terms of especially center midfield, I mean, Leipzig has, it feels like they have a squad of 30 players right now, and they will lay off a few, like Zaraki, for instance, the left back.
I think they have 32 exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I haven't counted, but, especially you got players like Haidara, for instance, who doesn't really play a role right now, it was like pretty hot when he came over from Salzburg. Also, Hannes Wolf, a former number 10 from Salzburg. Of course, most of them come from Salzburg, for obvious reasons. I mean, Hannes Wolf, for instance, he was injured badly in summer. Now he made his comeback. So it will be interesting to see what role he plays because he's number 10. They don't really have a number 10 right now. But maybe he can play up front. Be like basically a false 9 next to Werner, which will be, crazy to think of, but still. Yeah, but especially the center midfield, he sometimes uses these more physical players, especially, I mean, it's like someone like Leimer, for instance. I think Julian Nagelsmann is the only coach in Europe who can make Leimer a capable playmaker. I mean, Leimer is like so limited in his passing ability and his like tactical understanding. He was an up and down right back, and now he should be an up and down right back, but now he's basically as a center midfielder and is pretty established at Leipzig. Same with like Diego Demme, but he was established before Nagelsmann even came in. And then you got someone like Kampel, for instance, who can basically, if Werner plays in the left half space, Kampel can balance it, playing through the right half space, or even playing also through the left half space and interacting with Werner pretty well. For Dortmund, which, I mean, of course, first key to success is how can they contain Werner? If do they man mark him? Let's say, do they assign Akanji to be the shadow of Werner? I mean, it's doable, especially with a back three. It would be doable, but on the other hand, you have someone like Hakimi as a right wing back who really has to be aware when he has to move inside and protect Akanji when Werner drops into the midfield. So I don't know if that's happening. What about Julian Weigl? He plays the right side at center midfielder. He could also engage with Werner, but he's not as talented in these one-on-one situations as just seen against Slavia Prague. So really, the one major question is for Dortmund, in my opinion, how can they contain Werner? Everything else is pretty straightforward. Right side, Klostermann is athletic. You can pair him up with Hakimi, of course. You could do that, but you can also just use Guerrero, who should be able to defend Klostermann often enough. Although that's also something Klostermann likes to move inside from the right. given that Klostermann really plays as a right back. I mean, there are some doubts about that actually, but if he plays as the right back, he likes to move inside. And then, which he also does for the German national team a lot. So that's then the task for Zagadou to really pick him up and not let him get a free shot in the backspace, for instance. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some key players, and especially Werner and Klostermann are the two I think Dortmund has to be worried about. The center midfield is more of an assisting type of role. And of course, Sabitzer and Forsberg, yes, great in one-on-one situations. Sabitzer a little bit more of a risk because he does more like out of the box type of stuff as opposed to Forsberg, in my opinion. But under Nagelsmann, especially in recent matches, they play as pretty straightforward type of wingers. So that means, the task for Dortmund is just to, be in position and defend them as you would defend these type of wingers. That they are more talented, that like the wingers Mainz Fields or Slavia Prague. I mean, that comes with the match and with the job. But there's not much to it. But technically, it's really all about these two players I mentioned. And of course, there are some weaknesses Leipzig has. I mean, still defensively, yeah, they look better than they have been for quite a while. Still, they have to use Stefan Ilsanker as a center back. He has done actually pretty well. Still, I mean, he's not really Orban in that regard in terms of like basic defending skills. He's still a center midfielder. So of course there are some weaknesses, but not much, not many, I should say. So yeah, that's basically a roundup or a little bit of an explanation on RB Leipzig right now in December 2019.
Yeah, thank you. I do not know what to ask next. So, Lars, if you have any thoughts on that particular game, feel free to say whatever you want.
What? I did zone out a little bit. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not here to listen to 10 minutes of Leipzig analysis. So, I mean,
what?
They are good. They are probably the best team in Germany right now, from what I can tell. I mean, Gladbach have been fortunate to beat Bayern. They lost twice against Dortmund when Dortmund weren't really all that this season. So I think they are out of the equation. Bayern lost to Gladbach still and lost to Leverkusen. So they probably, I mean, they're seventh, so they're not the best team in Germany. Dortmund certainly aren't. So, I mean, the onus is on Leipzig, and I certainly think that they have a very good chance actually to win the championship this season.
So how big is this game, Matthias? It's a Tuesday night game. We don't know what the standings in the table will be, but I assume it might be second against third or something along the lines. So is this a huge game that everyone needs to watch? Is this something that could draw more audience around the world? Do you think this has high prestige? And if so, why?
Okay, so those are a lot of different questions. Kind of asking the same thing, but a little bit different. Obviously, it's an extraordinarily important match for both clubs. It's Leipzig want to keep this momentum going into the winter break and maybe be Herbstmeister. Dortmund, this is their big test now if they're playing with the 3-4-3, if they are. This is really to see, are they for real or not? Because I agree with Lars, Leipzig are probably playing the best football right now in Germany. Arguably, they have probably the best coach in Germany right now. Some exciting players and stuff like that. So it's definitely a match to watch. It'll be interesting tactically. It'll be interesting as far as attacking movement and stuff like that. It will not be a boring match. Now, as far as prestige goes, I will always say any match against a Red Bull franchise company is not prestigious. It is not prestigious for Dortmund against Dosenball Leipzig. That's just, I'll never say that ever. But it's definitely a big match, and it's definitely going to be an entertaining match, and I think everybody should watch it and boo the ever living crap out of Dosenball Sport Leipzig.
All right, fair enough. So I personally think it's not very ideal for Dortmund that they are missing Axel Witsel right now. So and I really have some worries, some huge worries about Julian Weigl. Would it make in any way or form sense to not play Weigl and maybe play Dahoud in midfield, Lars? Or am I completely out of my mind again?
Yep.
Okay. So, why am I out of my mind?
I think someone asked me on Twitter this week why shouldn't Dahoud play over Weigl, and I said playing Dahoud as the most defensive midfielder smells like a halftime substitution to me. I mean, in my mind, there's no evidence whatsoever that Dahoud is capable of filling that role against a good opponent, and neither is there any kind of evidence that Favre would, feel comfortable playing him there. So, I mean, the question, I don't think Favre is contemplating that. I mean, I would be less surprised if Leonardo Balerdi, just because Favre mentioned it in his press conference on Thursday, that he can play as a defensive midfielder, which I haven't seen, obviously, because, I mean, my experience of watching Balerdi live is, in competitive matches, is like 20 minutes this season. So, I mean, that would be less surprising to me than Dahoud playing as the lone defensive or lone, natural defensive midfielder.
Yeah, fair enough. So how can Dortmund hurt this Leipzig team, Lars? And who should play? Because I think you mentioned Alcázar potentially starting.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that I wouldn't be surprised if Favre went back to the conceivably more stable, customary 4-2-3-1, with Weigl and Dahoud perhaps, or even Brandt as a out-and-out central midfielder, which right now I think he has more of a hybrid role between an 8 and a 10, alternating between playing next to Weigl or Witsel and next to Reus, basically, or, in those spaces anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went back to the shape they still, know better and might be more comfortable in defending, which they will have to do more of than they have done against Slavia and are presumably going to have to do against Mainz. And with that, I think, that it would be a good idea to have a proper striker up front. Also because, you probably are going to get fewer chances against Leipzig. So, putting your best finisher in from the start might be a good idea. But I think a lot of it really depends on, the state of mind they have going into this game, and also whether they need to rest someone. I mean, it's the penultimate game of the calendar year, so it's like there's light at the end of the tunnel, but still, I mean, since they switched to this 3-4-3 system, it's basically been the same 11 guys or 12 guys being played, with Piszczek and Hakimi kind of switching. So, I mean, there might be a player or two that just can't play another high intensity match against Leipzig of all teams. So I think that will inform the decisions more so than perhaps our very early tactical ideas.
Yeah, that's very true, because it's pretty guaranteed that Leipzig will outmatch Dortmund in terms of athleticism, and whenever this has happened this season, Dortmund have struggled quite severely. Just look at the Bayern game. So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we can't predict too much, but Konstantin, I just want to know, if you were Favre, would you stick to the 3-4-3 system, or, as Lars just said, revert back to the 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 system?
I mean, actually, in a vacuum, I would stick to the 3-4-3. Because of the possibilities to have one defender going along with Werner, for instance, if it's required, and not doing that if it's not required. So, and also then outnumbering the two Leipzig players if they are going into the pressing formation. So, in a vacuum, I would. I mean, only thing that concerns me a little bit is that Akanji as well as Hummels haven't really figured out how to play a back three. So, and also, I don't know if Hakimi is then the right guy on the right side, and maybe you have to switch that a little bit. So in a vacuum, I would, technically, I think of 3-4-3 is what you should apply against Leipzig. Just the problem is that some of these Dortmund players concern me a little bit about execution.
Well, I mean, this is why we all say this is a big test for Dortmund, because it obviously will be. And I assume there will be quite a couple of goals on both sides. I don't know. So it's going to be a really, really tough game. I think it's going to be one of the toughest games for Dortmund yet this season. So because I'm not really feeling comfortable with the matchups really anywhere on the pitch. If I'm brutally honest, I just feel like what Leipzig are doing is not something that Dortmund will be able to deal with. So I don't know. Shall we then move on to predictions, Matthias?
Might as well. The one thing I will add, given that Leipzig do like to press and stuff like that, maybe. I mean, it's obviously quality-wise, it's completely different. But maybe the timing of Slavia Prague, Mainz, and then Leipzig is a good kind of run-up, warm-up to Leipzig when it comes to teams that are very intense and very intent with the way they want to play, as kind of a warm-up to the main act, so to speak, with Leipzig. So maybe this all scheduling-wise kind of worked out. I agree. I'm very nervous about Witsel not being there. As such, if we're going to go with predictions now, I think Dortmund are going to lose, and I think they're going to lose 3-1.
Yeah, that's also, well, not entirely my prediction, but my prediction is also Dortmund are going to lose. I only predicted 2-1 loss, but nevertheless, right now, as it would stand, that would be a 7-point gap, which is far from ideal, but it would be what it would be. Lars, your prediction?
Well, first of all, to Matthias's point, Achim Bayerlotzer actually worked for Leipzig, coached the team in the second Bundesliga, so there's certainly some similarities that might help in preparation. As for my prediction, I'm going with, as you said, Stefan, a couple of goals on both sides and a 2-2 draw.
That would be, I think, a good result for Dortmund. Konstantin, your prediction?
Yeah, I agree with Lars. That would be a result I would consider likely.
All right, so none of us predicting a W for Dortmund on Tuesday. We'll see how that goes, but obviously there's one topic left to discuss. We've all seen it in the media. Erling Haaland, the RB Salzburg striker, has been in Dortmund, spotted apparently at the airport or whatnot, but we have not seen any pictorial evidence. So that's at least reported by Ruhrnachrichten and Radio 91.2. So the local press, which I personally trust in these matters, and so there could be a potential transfer of the 19-year-old wonder striker, who I think has now scored 28 goals in 22 games overall, and then 8 goals in 6 Champions League group stages. Konstantin, would this be a good move for Dortmund to sign him, and do they have a chance to purchase him, given that he is part of the Red Bull franchise, and obviously RB Leipzig are also very much interested? I think they will sooner or later sell Timo Werner, and I don't know what the situation there is with Patrick Schick either.
Yeah, so on that, yes, I guess Leipzig is highly interested in Haaland, but on the other hand, you wouldn't be a Werner replacement. Complete different type of player. So, I mean, I think Leipzig are building up their Werner replacement in Kunja, actually, and also with Lukman, but more like Kunja. So yeah, I mean, I don't really see Haaland as a Werner replacement. Of course, I mean, it's just Leipzig's strategy has been that they want to take in as many quality players as they can get, and especially through the Salzburg Liefering model. However, thing is just that you can trigger a release clause until February to get Haaland, and I mean, there's not much Leipzig can do about Haaland deciding to just go to Dortmund instead of Leipzig. And he's not really Haaland's not really ingrained in the Red Bull system that much. I mean, his advisor, his agent is Mino Raiola. So, I mean, Mino Raiola doesn't care one bleep about Leipzig or Salzburg or even Dortmund. So he just cares about the development, and as seen with Matthijs de Ligt, I think he sometimes wants his clients to make this, one step before really signing for one of these major clubs, because then they got 2 signing fees and he gets more money out of it. So I guess it's actually highly likely, or somewhat highly likely, that Dortmund signs Haaland, just triggering the release clause and getting him under contract, and he doesn't go to Leipzig. So with that being said, I mean, would he be a fit? I guess to some extent, yes. Plenty of fans and pundits and want to be pundits have been clamoring for one physical center forward, someone who can be a threat in terms of high balls, crosses. Now here comes the problem. Of course, I mean, Haaland looks like out of a Hulk film, and he's really physical and athletic, and he's big. But he doesn't really is that much of a aerial player. He just isn't. Like, he doesn't really win much aerial duels right now. Of course, he has like the basic skills to do that, but he's still more of a player who's playing on the ground, who's a target player. Of course, who can protect the ball with his body. Only like negative downside is that he has like a Jürgen Klinsmann type of touch, which is a pretty weird reference. But what I mean is Jürgen Klinsmann back in the day was called flipper, because like the ball was flipping away from his foot when he tried to receive it.
The correct term on the Yellowwallpod is trampoline touch.
Okay, referring to whom?
Erik Durm, basically.
Erik Durm.
Erik Durm, definitely.
Erik Durm, same haircut as Haaland, I guess, right? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's like one issue is really that he has not really that much of a good first touch, and so especially in tight plays where he's surrounded by like 3-4 defenders, in situations where, of course, Royce has not much of an issue to just receive the ball, to have the ball glued to his foot. I don't really know if Haaland is the right guy. He's, because Salzburg really brings in these open field situations, with the type of plays they have. Dortmund sometimes can create the same thing. But of course, I mean, Paco Alcázar, in my opinion, is a good counter-attacking center forward. So why would you have Haaland? What really Haaland does is, of course, he's not that injured. He could be a good replacement for Alcázar to some extent, and he's a great finisher. So, I mean, why not try to do that? Why not look at him as a prospect and look at his basic skills, which could develop in something else? Maybe his first touch will improve a little bit. I mean, there's still like room for improvement, and it's not like at 19 or 20, like there's no chance that his first touch will improve. Especially if he's trained to do that, if just high pressure training, you have to do high pressure training, surrounding him with plenty of defenders, and then playing these fast vertical passes. Just try to get him in these kind of situations in training, and also, I mean, making him in more of an aerial player, and then being a target for cross passes and some of Hummel's long balls, because Hummel's long balls it's a lost art basically at Dortmund right now, right?
Yeah, if it weren't for Marco Reus stumbling over the ball the other day against Slavia Prague, we might have actually seen a Hummel's long balls goal, but not in this case. Matthias, you were raving about him quite a bit. Why, and would you welcome this signing at the winter break?
Well, there are a few things. One is obviously on the pitch. The other one is off the pitch. If we go to the off the pitch implication, it's making a statement to a degree. One of the hottest, most talked about commodities going to Borussia Dortmund obviously is a statement of intent. and shows Dortmund standing again as a place for younger players to come and really make their mark in the next step in their career, when the next step is the mega club, mega contract. Plus, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people looking at Dortmund again and more attention around it and stuff like that. So that helps further recruitment, obviously. So that's off the pitch. On the pitch, of course, he is a natural striker, which is something a lot of people, including us, have said is kind of lacking, because Paco Alcácer, though also a natural poacher, he has massive issues when it comes to staying healthy. That's undeniable. Mario Götze is not a striker. He fulfills that role admirably, but really, it's not his forte. Neither is Marco Reus or Hazard, so we can agree we need a striker. He is a natural striker. He is a young, highly talented player that can also benefit from a coach like Lucien Favre, who is a developer also of talent, can make him a better player. And if he's available to be gotten at a reasonable, whatever the price is, 20 or 30 million euro release clause price, it would be almost stupid to not get him at this point. It gives you a presence in the box that Dortmund have really been lacking since Lewandowski. Yes, Aubameyang scored a lot of goals, but he wasn't a presence in the box as Lewandowski has been and still is. So he fulfills a lot of the stuff that even Favre said he likes in a player. And like Konstantin said, he's not super strong in the air. Well, Favre doesn't really play the high lofted cross game. So a lot of those wannabe pundits, we can kind of ignore their opinions to a degree anyway. So playing it to his feet, back to goal, holding up the ball, movement off the ball, it fits quite well actually with what Favre wants strikers to do. So, that's basically my fanboy summary. But he still has a lot of growing up to do. He's still very, very young. He's a little bit hot-headed at times. But that's the stuff you kind of take into account with a young, highly talented, highly sought-after player. Where Dortmund, also another off-the-pitch thing, is if they get him for 20, 30 million and he continues on this trajectory, they're going to make a net profit of about 100 million on this kid.
Yeah, he's about 1 meter 94, and he's very athletic. I think that's the first features you really notice, like given his size, how quick and nimble he is. So if you were an NFL player, I'd probably put him somewhere at tight end or so. Lars, you mentioned before the show that you haven't really had time to form much of an opinion based off what Matthias and Konstantin just said. Would this be more a yay or a nay for you?
Well, since I have refrained so far from watching YouTube highlights, which is the scouting feed for the wannabe pundits that you have so reverently referenced just now a couple of times, I mean, I will refrain from really voicing an opinion on whether or not they should sign him. I mean, if everyone wants him, then he can't be so bad, right? So it might probably make sense to sign him. And certainly the argument Matthias pointed out that even if he doesn't, fulfill all of his potential and becomes the next great striker in Europe, I mean, if you sign him for 20 million, which is the rumored release fee, you will still make a lofty profit on him if he's just like a 15 goal a season kind of striker, because they tend to go for a lot of money in the transfer market these days. So the one thing that I don't like about the idea of signing, the wonder kid kind of player is that you are basically kicking the can down the road once again. You can already basically start the countdown when he signs for Dortmund, or if he signs for Dortmund. I mean, is it 18 months before the media starts writing him off towards, let's say, Liverpool or Man City or Real Madrid?
It's more like 18 minutes probably at this rate.
Or is it 30 months, or is it even less? I mean, it's just from, a purely non-analytical kind of viewpoint. I would just prefer probably to have a player that could conceivably see his at least midterm future at Dortmund, as opposed to the wonder kid Raiola client kind of guy that presumably sees it as a stepping stone from day one, which is obviously the appeal of Dortmund for that kind of player, but also I think has been a contributing aspect towards the loss of, a clear-cut identity for this team. But I guess that's perhaps going a bit too far for this discussion.
Well, maybe, but I think it's a good point to make. I mean, the real upside is that you would get someone A, that's talented, and B, athletic on a relatively cheap transfer fee, if the rumors are true, because I think I said this after the Bayern loss, that Dortmund have a hard time to acquire footballing talent that's also very physical and athletic at the same point. So these boxes are all ticked in this regard, but I also agree. I like my strikers a bit more like a fine wine when they are more experienced and have already seen some major experience and had, especially Haaland, he's a bit hot-headed. So, I think there are a lot of pro and cons out there. I'll just say this from what I read and hear. It appears that this is going to likely happen. So, we shall look forward to it happening. But yeah, I think we can discuss it a bit more in depth at another point, because we're already 1 hour and 20 minutes into the show, and I have to leave now. So that means we can end it here. So a quick prediction doing the round before the outro. Will Dortmund sign him? Yes or no, Matthias?
Yes, I think so.
Lars? Konstantin?
Yes.
All right. So that's a yes from me as well. So I guess that's everything we could possibly do for this week. So Lars, please tell our listeners where to find you on the internet and read your work.
Just find me on Twitter at Lars Bollmann.
Matthias?
You can find me on Twitter at Matthias Zug.
Konstantin, your new YouTube channel?
Twitter. Well, this is a German language YouTube channel.
Well, we have a lot of German listeners, so...
Well, do we? Do we actually?
We do actually do.
All right. Interesting. So to our German-speaking listeners, YouTube channel, youtube.cceckner.com. Or just, type in Konstantin Eckner in the Google and the YouTube search, so you will find it as well. Next video on Sunday will be about RB Leipzig. Going all things, going down before the big match against Dortmund. And you can also find me on Twitter, where I will share, of course, all the videos and all the articles, cc_ECKNER.
That is wonderful. Again, thank you for coming on, to you all three. You can find me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can find all of us and reach all of us on Twitter and Facebook at Yellowwallpod. If you want to subscribe to the show, please do that via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and all the other ways you can get your podcast. And if you want to read our written content behind the yellow paywall, then go to theyellowwall.net and sign up to our Patreon for $1 a month. And then you have full access to all the interviews, news, and whatever you find there. And otherwise, if you like Dan or the BVB fan club in Canada want to sponsor an episode, please contribute $10 on Patreon, and then you will get your shout out, whatever that is. And I will say thank you for listening as always, and goodbye.